Core conditioning is very important for the stability of all the joints throughout the body. So core development is using long, slow sets that are prolonged. So using these longer duration sets that aren't so heavy. So what I do is I program 6 minutes worth of core at the end of all my sessions, and that just keeps it very simple and practical. So usually it's front, back or side, side. Now the most key exercise out of all the different core exercises is bridging work. So the basic bridge would just be a bridge facing down here, and then using the serratus anterior to stabilize the shoulders, drawing the core in so you're getting a nice flat abdomen, so you're tightening up through there, locking the elbows, keeping the legs straight. If that's too hard, go to here. If that was still too hard and you had to regress it, come to a 4-point position, working 2-point, so you're getting cross stabilization. But if you were doing any face down bridging work, then you do the corresponding face up. So here, just doing the basic bridge that way. Now there's lots of variations of bridges, so it's important to program in a way that you're ticking off the key ones and getting some good conditioning that's going to carry over into spinal stability, hip stability, knee stability, shoulder stability, elbow stability, and getting that conditioning response that's going to allow you to enjoy your other training. So a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on the key main movements: squatting, lunging, bending, pulling, pushing, twisting, but this keeps the body together. And when you're young and healthy and you don't have any dysfunction in your spine or your shoulders, you can get away with that. But I've found that most people do much better if they include the core conditioning as part of their training session. And the most practical way I find is just to finish with it, because it's lower level. You don't want to pre-fatigue that system before you train, so you're looking for postural endurance when you do core conditioning. So I like to do it at the end and use 6 minutes, and I like to get people to do it as much as they can. So if someone's got spinal instability, so they've got lower back pain or neck pain or shoulder pain, then investing 6 minutes a day is a great way to stabilize those joints and allow for you to feel better in your body. So usually 1 day a week, focus on just bridging front and back. Now if you wanted to keep the program very simple, you could just do different bridges each day and that would work. There's lots of variations. So to start out, let's have a look at just the main 4-point position. So this comes back to infant development. So when you come out of the womb, you go through the full evolutionary process of going through reptilian development into mammalian development. So a 4-point position is a mammalian position, and you want to stabilize the shoulder blades. So learning how to get that shoulder shrug there and then holding that and getting postural endurance with the serratus anterior. And then in the hips, maintaining a neutral spine, so you've got that natural curve through there, so not letting it round out or overarch, but keeping that. You can bring your gaze up slightly so that way you have a natural curve in the neck. So you should have around a 25 to 35 degree curve, then the same in the thoracic spine where the ribs are, and around a 30 to 40 degree curve in the neck. That's what we're looking for. Keeping that there, so you may just work that and just focus on breathing. So breathing into the belly, big belly, and then breathing out, little belly, making that belly nice and small. And that's just teaching you to get that sensation of controlling the deep abdominal wall and the transverse abdominis. So that way you get a better response from all your training if you've got that low level stability there all the time. Then from there, to make that one harder, you can go from a 4-point to a 2-point. So I'm just decompressing the opposite hand and knee and then changing to the other side. So that would be a way to make that one a lot harder. A simple, effective core exercise with bridging work that you can do if you don't have time or you just really need to focus on stabilizing the lower back is just the 4-point to 2-point, but extending the opposite arm and leg out. That way you'll get the posterior chain working as well at the same time. So you're working both sides of the body. So if you're progressing from just the 4-point to 2-point here, getting static holds, so you might be doing 15 seconds a side or 10 seconds a side and doing 6 reps. then you can make that heavier, work the lower trap, work the glute while you're doing the arm extension at the same time. It's obviously going to be heavier when you're doing one arm like that as a shift to stabilize for the serratus anterior on the pushing arm, and then that lower trap's working. You're coming out at a 45-degree angle and you're turning the thumb up, so that external rotation. Now that's probably one of the most effective exercises to turn on the shoulders, hips, and all of the spinal musculature. So it's from the neck all the way through into the lower back, and get that cross bracing, cross stabilization. So it's something that I use for people if I'm giving them a very simple program. So they're just doing some bodyweight squats, lunges, some pull-ups on the kitchen sink as an example, and their only core exercise, if I have to give them just one, and I need to keep it as simple as possible so they can do it, is just that 4-point to 2-point progression and working up to that version. So they may just start in that 4-point position, doing breathing there, belly breathing, and then go to opposite arm and leg, decompressions, and then extending the arm and the leg out, so that way they're getting the glutes, they're getting the lower trap, they're getting the hip stabilization. So it is a very effective way to do that, and it's probably one of my most used exercises for people that I'm giving a very simple home program to. And if I'm myself, if I'm in a hurry and I just feel like I need to turn some muscles on around my neck, my shoulders, my hips, my lower back, and my glutes, I find that that's very effective. So when I'm traveling or when I just don't have time, I can just get down on the ground and do some of those, and I feel that it turns on all those muscles and I feel a lot better for it. From there I can go from the knees out to the toes and just keeping that square. From there you can make that harder by taking just one limb off at a time, and then you can make that harder again by taking both off, and that's quite hard because you've got to get that cross stabilization. So it's very easy to make it harder. Now you can also make it harder by going from this position back to here. Now when the wrists are in front of the shoulders, then that's going to make that a lot heavier on the midsection. If you're doing planche work where you're trying to get more weight into the upper body, then you bring the shoulders over. Now to balance that out, you want to do the bridge facing up. Now the basic version would be just nice and simple like this, trying to open up the front of the hips, getting the glutes on, working the lower back. To make that harder, you can just take one leg off or decompress it, and that'll work that cross sling in the back, and you're going to feel the opposite shoulder blade pushing down. To make it harder, you just walk the feet further apart like that. That's going to make that quite challenging. You can also do the face up bridge in the rings, and that will give it more of a reversed response to the face down position. So if I'm face up here and I've got my legs out, so instead of doing those serratus shrugs, I'm doing lower trap shrugs, and that's getting the lower traps active, getting the deep neck flexors working in the neck, and getting that nice control. Maintaining that, you can go one leg, one arm in here is a lot harder, but you might put both hands on one ring, holding and shifting like that. Does make it very heavy. When you face up and your heads float like on the top of your neck, and it's weighing down on the neck, so it's pulling down on it, you want to make sure that tongue is on the roof of the mouth, the jaw is closed, and you're keeping the teeth together, breathing through the nose. And an important thing with the tongue, so if you look from the side and the back of my tongue is down, you see that there, that double chin. Now if I bring the whole tongue against the roof of my mouth, you can see that draws up, and it not only creates more stability for the neck, but it looks a lot better as well. So there's nothing worse than seeing that tongue hanging down. But I always see people and they have that, and I know that they're not going to be as strong in their neck as they could be if they come to me and they complain about getting a sore neck, and I can see that tongue hanging down, and it's that double chin position, and it's not just fat there, but you can see that they might be quite lean and they've still got that look. Then I know they have the potential to learn how to bring their tongue up and hold a better tongue position, chew their food better, and massage their food against the roof of the mouth and stabilize the neck in a much more effective way. So you've got bridging front back with a static spine, and then you can also do bridging with the dynamic spine. So what that means is, if I was just doing a basic 4-point to 2-point, I'd flex and extend like that. Or I can do it here on the feet, so I'm going into extension in the spine, stabilizing, and then going up into a flex spine. So there's that nice dynamic control through there, and I can use the breath with it, breathing in and breathing out. Nice and smooth. It's a bit harder on the back when you're doing it without the rings, just on the ground, to get that shape change. So you can arch here and move the hips down a little bit, then drive up and try to tuck that butt under. Breathing in, breathing out, like that. It is a little bit easier doing it in here, it's quite nice. So you're getting that nice dynamic flow. So from there, breathing in, and then breathing out. And then holding that position for a minute. It's quite heavy on the grip, so you're developing good postural endurance in the grip as well, which carries over into your pull-ups, and it's also targeting the slow twitch fibers in your grip, and same with the core and all these movements. So when you're doing heavier lifting, so if I'm doing pull-ups, then that's going to target more fast twitch responses, heavier loading responses, whereas these long sustained sets hit fibers that are at a lower threshold. And the reason why that's important to include in your training is if you just hit the higher threshold fibers, anytime you're doing something that requires longer postural endurance, so if you're doing any manual work where you're doing something repetitive, if you only train really heavy things, when you go to do that, you'll find that you fatigue very quickly and you put more pressure into the spine and your joints. So it's very important to get that conditioning to just make the body healthier to get things done in life. Now, if I'm doing front and back, and then I can do transverse plane by taking one limb off, so that adds that cross bracing effect. The other thing to do is to do side bridge work. So coming here, now you might find this is really heavy on the shoulder when you start, so you might have to go up and down. You might even start with 30 seconds a side and then build that up to a minute. That one can be made into that static position. Now if I want more conditioning in the neck, I can bring that up. If I want to make it heavier again, I can come up here, bring the arm up, and you can also make it dynamic. So I'm stretching and then strengthening. So that way all the lateral muscles, the oblique muscles, are contracting and shortening, and then I'm lengthening them as I come down. So I might do a minute one side, a minute the other side. These are very heavy on the shoulder, so you've got to be careful with it, but you want to build up to it. Now some people find that really hard, so again, you can just go up and down, or if you find you've got a shoulder problem but you still want to get that lateral conditioning, then you just do side work without that. So you're still getting some neck conditioning, still getting the oblique work, but this is the upper part working. Whereas when I'm doing here, the bottom side is working harder. You get a co-contraction, but the bottom side works much harder. The other bridge work you can do is rotational. So if I'm here, I can have the feet a bit apart, and then I can rotate, coming up, breathing in, and then coming down. Breathing in and coming down. You can do the same thing with the ring here, only you're not going to rotate as far unless you have the ring much higher, or I can do it like that. This will make it easier. So I come up here and I can rotate. Like that. If you have the ring a bit higher, you get a nicer rotation because you're hanging with the spine more horizontal. So bridging work with the ball is very effective. Now this wrist ball is a great tool, it's worth the investment. You don't need to necessarily get one like this. These are quite expensive, but as you can see on here, you can, this takes up to 700 kilos dynamic and 2,750 kilos static, so it can take a lot of pressure. You don't need a ball like that. You can go online, eBay, Kmart, whatever, and get something quite cheap. It'll still do the same thing for all these type of exercises. It's not going to require this type of strength in a ball. So you can do body on the ball bridging. So here I've got my forearms on the ball and I do the same type of process as to make it harder. This makes it a bit more dynamic and I'm learning hip back disassociation while I'm bridging. Then I'm coming up, holding here, and then you can do that dynamic, come out, up, come down, hinge, to integrate that into it. So that's with my forearms on the ball, or body on the ball, then I can have the feet on the ball, like that, and do some dynamic hip work with it. You can do the rotational work with it. You can just do static holds with it. And they're all quite good. Then the reverse, I can have the feet up on the ball. And this bridging work, have the legs straight. And do single leg, and do rotational, like that, so you can get that rotational stability as well, and develop that. Then you can have the body on the ball. Having the hips up, you can do that dynamic hip movement, so I'm learning hip back disassociation, stabilizing the spine while I'm moving the hips. Have the feet together, decompress one leg, other leg. You can do lateral ball rolls, so you step, get that cross stabilization, come out, step, cross stabilization. Then you can also do upper body rotations. So here. So the ball is a useful tool for doing core conditioning, but also just for sitting on. They work very well, and just doing different stretches. They're a small investment, but with a great return on that investment in terms of how much you can do with them. Yeah, you can spend a bit more money, but even the really cheap ones will still do all these things. They might go a little bit out of shape and they may not have a perfect sphere after a while, but they'll still do the job and they'll allow for you to condition all those tissues doing the bridging work. So I would highly recommend getting one as a tool to use for your training, and having that 6 minutes a day, if you do have lower back pain or neck pain or shoulder pain, including that into your daily routine will allow you to keep the tissues and the muscles around the joints that have been degenerated or overworked stable, so that way you can enjoy your life and just feel good in your body. So get into your core work, keep having fun. If you've got any questions, make sure you send them through to me. Make sure you film all of your movements that you are asking questions about, because if you don't film it, it takes a lot longer for me to figure out what's going on, whereas if I see it, very quick, very easy to work out what's going on and how I can help. See you soon.